Ooh, I've got a Splicey build for you guys this time, because I've always thought Splice was an interesting mechanic. But the problem is that most of them force you to splice onto an arcane spell. And while there are some decent cards that have Splice, a majority of arcane spells are pretty crappy. They're either overcosted or understated for what they do, or very narrow in their use. But there's gotta be some way to make this somewhat viable. So I tried to brainstorm some ideas, and here's what I came up with. Cast any kind of arcane spell that targets, or splice a card that can target. Tack on as many additional effects to that spell, but make sure every single target is targeting something like Mirror Wing Dragon, where it has an effect where if it becomes a target of an instant or sorcery, you copy that spell for every other creature on your battlefield. But hold on a minute, splicing is a text-changing effect. And if we're creating copies of something, we're only deriving values of the text printed from that card. So we would only copy things on layer 1 and ignore anything that would happen on layer 3. But for objects on the stack, we also copy over any choices that was made for when we're casting it. And because Splice is pretty much an additional cost, that is a choice that we make when we are casting that spell. So everything that we spliced onto that instant or sorcery gets copied over to every single target. So a lot of the idea of this deck is to try to double up on these spliced effects by copying them. Now that we've got the idea down, who's going to head this commander deck? I just felt like Tella was just perfect for this deck. Because we're relying on things like Mirror Wing Dragon and Zada Hedron Grinder, we rely on a lot of bodies on the battlefield, and Tella being able to create bodies for non-creature spells is perfect for that. And having a good mix of arcane spells and splice cards is crucial to this deck, so being able to draw more cards helps you get there. And what's even more perfect about that is that it cares about how much mana you spent, not the mana value of the card. So if I spend 2 mana for Desperate Ritual, and then another 3 mana to splice onto it as an additional cost, I've spent 5 mana on that spell, which would cause Tella to trigger and have me draw 2 cards. And yes, even the last ability is perfect for this deck, because I want to win in a janky way by doubling the damage that Tella would deal with Overblaze. If I can splice Overblaze enough times on Tella, then when that last ability goes off, it'll deal double, quadruple, octuple the damage. And there's a bunch of other janky splice cards that I've always wanted to play. Tella being able to make little dorks that I can transmute into actual creatures is just too perfect. And I like janky mana rocks like Empowered Auto Generator, but I could potentially generate infinite mana with things like that and Psychic Puppetry, with Petals of Insight being a repeatable way to cast an arcane spell. But as you can see, the mana value for a lot of arcane spells are kinda high. So the deck is a little bit of a weird mix of mana rocks and cost reducers. So we kinda have to be careful that we don't overdo it with the cost reduction so that it's more difficult for us to meet the card draw requirement with Tella. There's also this card. It's a fun card, but I don't think it's good, but I really want to make it work. This deck is pretty difficult to pilot. You have to kind of know what spells you are willing to cast and what you need to do at the right time. Even then, you're still kind of playing a bunch of bad cards, so I don't really know if this is a good deck or not, but I do kind of like the challenge and giving myself hoops to jump through in order to make something viable.